So then we move on, and then the next speaker will be Pieter van Kerkhof, and he's coordinator of charging infrastructure at the Netherlands Enterprise Agency. And Pieter will drive us through the Dutch national charging infrastructure agenda and the activities in charging needs and industrial compounds. So then, Pieter, the floor is yours. So let us know what's going on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Fernando, for the kind introduction. Let me check if it's working. I think so.
All is well. Yes. Thank you.
So it's working, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it's working perfectly.
Thank you. So I'm a colleague of Sanja. I work for the Netherlands Enterprise Agency as well for about 4 years now, mainly on charging infrastructure. And today we'll tell you a little bit about, well, the national charging infrastructure we have in the Netherlands and focus on what we do on medium and heavy duty charging infrastructure. Just to give you a glance, because I understood this is a more international group. We have, for a small country, almost 18 million inhabitants. And amazingly, we have almost 9 million passenger cars, about 1 million heavy duty, medium duty vehicles, delivery vans, and roughly 140,000 heavy duty vehicles. On the right side, you see a map with how the government is organized in the Netherlands, which the smaller fragments are the municipalities. There are about 350, and there are 12 provinces. And this is important because it provides a challenge on how we want to organize charging infrastructure, and particularly public charging infrastructure. Together with the climate agreement, we also thought with the electrification of mobility, we need to have a strategy on how we want to organize the charging infrastructure. And basically to realize the fast upscaling of charging infrastructure. We've been doing this since about 2009, 2010, and our goal is basically comparable to charging your mobile phone, easy, smart, and everywhere. And how did we try to develop this strategy? We make charging point forecasts. So we how many fast charges, semi-public, public, and private charges we expect, and that's around where we formulated strategy, and then divided into public charging for more the government side, and try to stimulate or upskill the private and semi-public charging. So from that national charging infrastructure, we have a regional approach. On the right side, you see the map of the Netherlands again, where we have organized 6 regional project organizations. They support the municipalities and are responsible for the rollout of public charging infrastructure. And they have an active collaboration with regional utilities or grid companies. And the goal is to have AC charging on the streets, at home and at work, and fast charging more on the corridors in the cities, for example, near supermarkets or building markets. And we try to combine it with the energy transition. And each region has its own challenges or focuses. So in the east and the north, we have more rural areas where we expect more private charging, where people have their own lawn, which they can park their car at either carport or at their own house. Whereas more in the center and on the west side of the Netherlands, it's densely populated, a lot of cities, and people often don't have their own parking spot. They rely on public parking, which requires a different charging strategy. And then we also have more the logistic corridors towards Belgium, as Marie-José mentioned. Antwerp, Rotterdam is a big corridor, but also to North Rhine-Westphalen in Germany. So it depends on the region where the focus lies and where we what the strategy is. So we go to Sanja already showed this picture. So now the zero emissions are coming up fast in less than 3 years already. Luckily, there's a transition period, but this really requires a lot of awareness of both businesses, but also of governments, that they really have to do something. Because the zero emission zones, well, they're only for, well, at the moment, 28 municipalities. All the logistics come from neighboring villages or neighboring towns. So everyone basically in the Netherlands has to cope with these zero emission zones. So they really have to transfer. To give you a quick overview, at the moment, I already mentioned we have roughly almost 1 million delivery vans. It's actually expected to rise to 1 million in the upcoming few years. And for light and heavy duty, it's close to 140,000. And then if you compare to how many of those are now zero emission or electric, it's only less than 2%. And we really have to upscale. I will show you in a bit the goals and the growth we expect. And particularly for city logistics, a large amount of the CO2 pollution comes from delivery vans. It's 43% in total. And then we have the heavy duty trucks, which is also more long haul. So it's a big transition and we really have to speed up. This is the growth scenarios which we expect, or the government expects, for in the blue delivery vans. In 3 years, we expect already 50,000 battery electric. So for city logistics, we think it's going to be mostly battery electric because of the speed and also because of the availability of battery electric vehicles. And for heavy duty, medium duty, we expect like around 1,000 minimum in 2025, and in 2030 16,000. But if you see on the left side where there's going to be a big growth between 2030 and 2035, and we expect similar growth paths for heavy duty, although later in time. Then how are these vehicles going to charge? We expect there are different charging profiles for the different types of logistics. Retail will usually be during the day and charge at night, but you also have other companies who want to charge during the day or have to charge in between. Nevertheless, particularly for delivery vans and heavy duty, we expect that the majority of demand is at their Home Depot or industrial sites or business parks. And delivery vans for smaller companies like the bakery or the painter, they usually take their van home back into the city, and they will charge at the street, public charging. So this is all, we all have to incorporate this in our starting charging strategy. Well, luckily we have organized a national working group where we focus on answering these questions that pop up, or trying to develop knowledge for both public parties as commercial parties. And we divided those in 5 task forces, which I will briefly address. So we have one that focuses more on forecasting. So where are the electric vehicles gonna appear? Where do they want to charge? And what is the height of the demand? And the type of data, and this group also focuses on what type of data do we use, how can we improve the forecast so we can get a more accurate view. Then we have the public stimulation of logistics charging, where we help governments or municipalities with tenders. How can you organize public logistics charging, but also how can you develop policy, facilitate charging, both private as public. The private logistic charging focuses on the impact, for example, of electricity prices, the development of the total cost of ownership, but also mitigating measures if you cannot directly realize charging infrastructure, for example, through grid congestion. Then we have the basic network for heavy duty logistics. It looks both at pilots to develop accurate heavy duty charging infrastructure, as well as a basic network, which I will show in a couple of slides. And there's also a focus on clean energy hubs, where you have charging, hydrogen, biofuels, and which is a combination of fuels. And finally, charging at construction sites, which is a different type of sector, where we look at construction hubs, similar like where we consider them as energy hubs, and we look to standardization. So for passenger cars, like interoperability is not a problem anymore, but for these new types of electrification, we still need to develop the accurate protocols so that the transition goes smoothly. Then a bit on forecasting logistics. We see that, as I mentioned, they will mainly charge at their depots, at business parks, or as it's stated in the presentation, industrial compounds. And we expect that grid integration is a major challenge. On the right side, you see just a quick overview where the yellow and red indicate that there are problems with grid capacity. This section, old picture. This is updated monthly by the grid operators. And I will show you in a bit that the situation at the moment is much more worrisome. And the highlights of the current research, like what we have developed the past year, is more look at the forecasting in an Outlook business parks. We have ELADNL, which is a knowledge institution that is founded by the grid operators that make these forecasts for all types of mobility. And we translated that forecast into a story map where you can actually see the charging demand per business park throughout the Netherlands. And then if you click on, for example, a municipality or a business park, you can get an overview of what the expected transition is of delivery vans and heavy duty vehicles. Just to give you a view, it's we start from how many vans and trucks are registered and where are they registered, and the size of the circle indicates how many trucks or delivery vans are registered. Then we use that to forecast according to the growth we expect on how many electric vans or trucks will be there then in 2025, 2030, and even up till 2050. And from that, we can also match what would be the charging power demand. So what would be the impact on the electricity grid, and what can we do to install that charging infrastructure. And with these data, as I mentioned, we rank that in a dashboard. So you have an overview of what is expected per municipality in the Netherlands. It is a useful tool for municipalities to check where do they have to support, for example, the business parks, or where is a big concentration of electric vehicles expected. And then how are we going to facilitate this? So the government is currently working on a basic network for public heavy-duty charging in 3 phases. And this just gives you an indication of how this looks. So they work with searching areas per municipality where they expect it's going to be developed, or where big demand is. And this is the phased approach is used. Try to give businesses a secure feeling that they can charge at some point in time. At the moment, it's expected to follow these 3 phases the next between 1 and 4 years. Since it's a big transition, we have installed a task force heavy duty charging infrastructure, which I'm part of, and we support municipalities with this challenge, and also local entrepreneurs at those business parks on what they can expect, what they have to think of, by sharing knowledge, by trying to incorporate best practices. For example, if they develop something in the north of the Netherlands, can they copy it in the south or in the west? Organizing sessions and also trying to improve the forecast so we can adequately develop strategies to accommodate the expected demand for charging infrastructure. The final slide, as I mentioned, the map looks a bit, quite different now. This is a map of the demand for electricity at the moment. The red and the orange basically indicates there's at the high voltage level, there's virtually no place for additional demand. So this is a big challenge for us, and we're trying to find solutions for this. Another big challenge is awareness, particularly with the local entrepreneurs, that the zero emission zones are coming and they really have to take action to be able to accommodate or still be able to get into the city. But it's also a responsibility of the municipalities. And then there's the employment shortage, particularly with local governments to support those entrepreneurs, but also to install the charging infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter, for all the insights and actually the well and very structured way in which you are forecasting the demand and the need for infrastructure and all that. I have seen one question, but I don't know if it was for you or for Marie Jose, but Marie Jose was very active replying all the questions. Thank you for that, Marie Jose, and plenty of insights on all of them. So thank you again. So then I don't see. There is one question that I'm going to give you, and it's on the electricity prices of commercial fast chargers are very high at the moment, and this makes in-house charging obligatory. How do you see this? And also, it's also said that subsidies are only supporting public charging, while the business model is for companies telling maybe depot or warehouse charging make them going through faster. I know it's a tricky question, but
so I will try to answer first with the electricity prices. This has been a problem this especially last year, and particularly because the electricity price reacts more slowly than the fossil fuel prices. So we've been monitoring that and trying to develop the effect, and we're now trying to work on more insight for entrepreneurs on what they can expect and how it affects their TCO. And we're also trying to develop a strategy what we can come up with to stimulate that public charging is still attractive. We don't have an answer yet, but we're definitely working on it. And as for subsidies goes, for now, Marie-José mentioned it, there were some more pilot subsidies where you can get subsidy as a private party as well. And we're at the moment, we're trying to see, because there's a lot of public money available from the climate and transition funds, how we can stimulate this sector even more, both with public and private charging. But it's work in progress, so I don't know yet when this will become available.
Yeah, probably for trucks there are the subsidies, but not for the charging. So that I think could be an idea for you to consider. So then you can
No, I agree, and I think if you want to have a successful transition, you will need to do both and not just the trucks, because in the end that will only hinder the transition if you only have the trucks, because people will postpone their decision to transfer if they cannot charge anywhere. So we're definitely working on that, but it's a bit too soon to say anything about it.
Yeah, we see a lot of this with European supporting tools that in which you can access different subsidies for different parts, but actually to run the operation in a smoothly way, you need all of them to be in place. So then you cannot take the risk on getting the tracks without the infrastructure or without the energy or whatever. And that's I think it good if you could address this in your program. So it's very good. So then the last question, it was more on the timing for the basic network for charging of heavy duty electric vehicles. If you could somehow elaborate on the different phases, and if it's well understood that within 4 years the network for charging heavy duty electric should be ready.
Well, that was the initial goal. I think they're working on to realize the first five this year, probably by the end of the year. But as you saw from the last slide, the big challenge now is the grid capacity. And in some areas it's still possible, but it's a big uh, yeah problem in basically the whole energy or climate transition. So the aim is still within 4 years, but it really depends on the local grid situation. The positive thing is that we're working in the same time on mitigating measures, so trying whether if there's no grid connection that we can use, or we can try to um, do it directly with sort of a standalone hub with renewable energy or with a battery. But it's a challenging time. But as for the timeline, the goal is still within 4 years, and the last I heard, they hope to realize five by the end of the year.
That's perfect. I see Marie Jose has her hand raised virtually. So
Yeah, I was just wanting to add something because um, I think the transport industry still needs to have a thorough discussion with Dutch government concerning the grid capacity, because we know that we have to strengthen it and increase it at certain places. But if you look at the investments that it brings now to transport hauliers, they're required to invest into these transformer houses, transformers, cables, etc. And you could also wonder where you draw the line, whether like, okay, is that actually not part of the grid? Because we all need to go through the transition, and we want this connection, this grid connection, to make sure that we um, um, get electricity in our trucks. But if you look at the gas network within the Netherlands, the hauliers haven't paid for that either in the future, and that was being put in the ground by the government. So I think we need to have that discussion, that a part of these hardware issues should be, I think, more pushed towards the grid owners and the grid operators within the Netherlands. But it's been a hot topic in the Netherlands. So
yeah, no, thank
that's
you very much. I don't know, Peter,
no.
if you have any reaction on that.
Oh, I completely agree. I think I see it as part of the government, but also the utility companies, that we try to facilitate the entrepreneurs, and we definitely have to do this together. And it's nice to have zero emission zones, but that also requires that we have to help the entrepreneurs to get into them.
And provide the means on the grid. And as Maria said, probably if you ask the less, I would say, the player that has the less resources to do something that is out of the boundaries, is unlikely to happen. So then it's maybe it's easier to ask but difficult to realize. So then I really second quite a lot the comments, and also where the big problems could be when moving from a few tracks to hundreds, thousands, or 10,000 tracks in the next years, if we want to address the transition as fast as we need. And I hear uh, achieving this 30% reductions emissions means 400,000 heavy duty, or 400,000 trucks in Europe, electric or hydrogen, and that's a lot already. And if we go 45%, it means it's not enough. So then, but yeah, this needs to be from all angles need to be addressed, and that's very important. But okay, that's we are entering into more discussion that a session. I see one question is how can we access and support the electric vehicles heavy duty task force? So maybe if you can answer that one, Peter, in the
Sorry, could you
in the
repeat
chat.
it? How?
Yeah, if it's possible to access support the electric vehicles heavy duty task force you mentioned.
Um, yeah, we you can ask me or send me an
Okay,
email because I'm
okay,
coordinating it.
okay. That's great. So then let's then thanks Peter for your insights and